Welcome to part 2 of The Master's Apprentice. We were just talking about the discipline of prayer, and we laid a foundation for that. If you have not watched that video, please go back and watch that video first of laying that foundation of what the discipline of prayer is. Now we're going to talk a little freely about how that looks like for us, maybe get into some practical tips for that. So, Dustin, how should we dive into part 2 today?
I just want to first acknowledge that if you're still here and watching, we didn't scare you off.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thanks.
Thank you for
Thanks
still being here.
Yeah, thanks for still being here. So with prayer, there's so many different ways we could go on practical side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think first, just to be honest, where I am at right now, I think it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm actually doing better in the moment-to-moment prayer than I am in more like longer seasons or like more set-aside times.
Sure.
I think just I've gotten into this rhythm and habit of when I'm going to work, I've got about a 10-minute drive. And depending on how traffic is, but I've got a 10-minute drive, and I've gotten into a rhythm of not having music, not having anything. I'm just in the car and praying as I'm driving.
Nice.
So I've gotten into that kind of a rhythm. So that's been good. I can't say I've done well on more established times of prayer. That has been something that's been tough. I've also been kind of just off of rhythm in general. I know I probably said it already on one of our other recordings, but I'm still struggling with some kind of sickness that has come through. This weird cough that just will not go away. But for like 6 weeks, it was just like, it was awful. I've got the end stages now, but that 6 weeks, I was just not feeling great and just kind of running on halfway energy. And it just threw me off my rhythms. And so I'm trying to get back. And now it's the holidays and the kids are out of school. So who knows how that's going to go.
Yeah. Our schedule has been pretty nonstop, and it was the same for you. So it's been really, really busy season. So we've shared, I think even on the last episode with discipline of scripture reading, we want to be honest. Like this show isn't about trying to show how we've got it all figured out. And there are people that are probably doing some of these disciplines better than us right now. There are people doing it. I shouldn't say there might be. There are people doing this better than us. And there's no way in which we are justifying even where we're currently at, but we want to be honest. So we are reading scripture, we are praying, but not in the rhythms that we would want them to look like right now. And so, but we are, by God's grace, looking to embrace those opportunities better and those rhythms better, for the sake of being with Jesus better and being more like him. So, I hope I worded that clearly enough, right? Looking at those as opportunities. But what I'd say, there are moments that, as a family or as in my marriage, where we have tried to do, I say we're doing better in some areas than others. So as we do a fairly consistent family worship together. We've been doing like an Advent. Well, that's a whole other story, man. We actually, I don't know if I should talk about this on here or not. Listen, we've been doing this Advent series that we ordered, and there was a few of the devotions that I'm just like, I was rewording it because I disagreed theologically with, but it wasn't like heresy. It was just like,
Sure.
I just don't appreciate, this is clumsy language.
Yeah.
And I can't stand it when someone's taken the time to have something written and edited and published in the theology. I'm like, is this on purpose or is this clumsy? And I can't tell what's going on. And I was already a little frustrated. And then I think it was 2 nights ago from the time of this recording here. I think it was 2 nights ago. And I was really tired, but I'm like, hey, we're going to do family worship. We're going to do this. And I opened it up and I'm reading it. And I got so mad. I was so mad because that's when I realized none of it was on accident. It was all on purpose. Um,
Oh,
and once again, I won't use the word heresy. That would be way too strong. But it was bad enough to where I'm not going to finish this Advent series. We're going to do something different to finish out our Advent season. It was that
mm,
bad. It was bad
wow.
enough to where I'm like, what is this? Like, what? No, no, this is, and it was a combination of wrong, like legitimately. Well, man, I want to be careful how I say it. It was so clumsy, it might as well be wrong on the first part, and the other thing was just really like like no. Like, anyway, I'm getting side railed here, but like this has nothing to do with prayer. All I'm saying is we normally have family worship. Recently had this situation with the Advent series, so be careful out there. I'm in favor of using resources, but don't be afraid to edit the content when you're doing
Yes.
it. Anyway, so for a while now, whether it's my wife or I, that we always pray with our kids. Like, and that's a rhythm that we for sure have had for a while now that I think that in general we don't miss. Like,
Yeah.
and there's an up and down to that being a generic goodnight prayer with the kids versus more intimate prayers to God
Right.
as a family. And so that's
Yeah.
had, and sometimes we will have the kids take turns leading that prayer as well.
Hmm.
So not just me or my wife. So sometimes the kids will have lead the prayer with that too, which is cool. So like that's a discipline I think we've done really well with. When we've transitioned with like work or something, we try to pray for each other at those moments. So we don't like, so if my wife's going to work, it's not just like, all right, see you later. Once again, we've not been perfect at this, but I think we've been more consistent than not of late of you're not getting out of the car until we've prayed. And so I would say when it comes to those type of things that for family type things, I think that we've had some really good, healthy rhythms of prayer. As far as me getting up in the morning and being in a rhythm of prayer, I've been really hit and miss with that. I've been more on the run in prayer, but even that hasn't been as healthy as I want. I've been the person that's been texting people instead, or
Sure.
calling somebody instead. Like that's been me of late. And then God has to remind me, hey, you going to talk to me? And so, honestly, in the past several weeks, my prayer life has been God reminding me to pray as opposed to me just. And
Yeah.
so, but I'm thankful for that. Here I am talking about God talking to us again. So, but like, but I have been thankful for the reminders, and not
Yeah.
only from God. I've actually had. I don't know if I've told you about this. I mean, it was a few weeks ago, and that whole week, like, I mean, I had been preparing stuff. I've been studying scripture, but like, I hadn't like read to learn or to grow in God, and I hadn't been praying to learn and grow in God and communicate, like be with Him, like we're talking about. The whole week I hadn't done that. The whole week, like for sure, like,
Yeah.
and I knew it. It's not like I was blindly doing it. I knew it, but I was like in denial. And good Christian friend of mine texted me and said, "I feel like God wanted me to tell you that you need to take more time to listen to Him." And it was one of those things where I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to. And so, like, I get this message and I'm like, doggone it, I have to tell this person that, yep, that was for me. That is God told you to tell me that. Yep. And it
It's
was
like I know what you're
embarrassing.
talking about.
Right. It was embarrassing because I wanted to, like, deny it, but I
Yeah.
knew I couldn't because it was 100% true.
Yeah.
And so God does that too. So that's where I'm at right now. There's some really good positives that I'm seeing that I'm really happy with. But on the other end, like on the personal end of things, it's a struggle for me right now. And I kind of know what it is too. And yeah, because when I go through seasons where I'm struggling with it, it's because it's kind of like a, head down, grind this out, figure this out. And
Yep.
meanwhile, God's like, oh, you don't think I know about that? Or I don't have any insight on
Right.
this issue or what? I know it's wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at right now, where I struggle, where it's not as consistent as it should be. Once again, not as a guilt complex as in I'm missing out on opportunities and I'm doing stuff the hard way. I'll put it that way. So that's where I'm at. So,
Yeah. Similar to what you were saying when we ended part one, is feeling like we can kind of just figure this out on our own, kind of scenario.
yep.
No, I'd say I'm probably right there too. Just, things are, just to be totally transparent, things are kind of tight
Yeah.
financially, and
Yep.
there's almost that kind of like grindy, just head down,
Mm-hmm.
go to work, try to do the best you can,
Mm-hmm.
make money, make
Mm-hmm.
it to the next day kind of feel. And I think most people are kind of feeling that at this point in time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of us are feeling that. We're feeling that. And unfortunately, sometimes we, man, our priorities get out of whack out of legitimate concerns. So, like, it's not
Yeah.
that the concerns aren't okay. Of course they are. The problem is when we think that our solutions are more important than our relationship with God. You know, an example I'll give is at one point in our marriage, like there was stuff that we needed to work through, and it was easier for me just to take extra hours at work and
Mm.
make sure the finances were good instead of developing my relationship properly with my wife. So, and since then we've talked about that. Like I was really honest about a certain season of our life where like, yeah, that was on purpose.
Yeah.
I just wanted to grind the season out and try to like figure it out as opposed to talking with you through these things. Same thing happens
Right.
with God on that. It's like, yeah, God, I know we need to work on this thing together. Let me get you after I
Yeah.
after I figure it out. I'll
All right.
I want to share this quote really quick. I mentioned this earlier too, but this is directly related to what we were just talking about. And this hurts. It hurts. So, from Paul E. Miller again. If you're not praying, and this is going to be good, I can tell. If you're not praying, then you're quietly confident that time, money, and talent are all you need in life.
Hmm.
But if you realize you can't do life on your own, then no matter how busy, no matter how tired you are, you'll find time to pray. Now, once again, I don't think what he's implying is that, if you're working two jobs and you have a third shift job that, no, you just can forget about sleep because you need to spend 3 hours in prayer. But no, like that's not the point that's being said there. It's just talking about any
Yeah.
time in prayer at all. Like it's just like in the midst of really busy seasons, in the midst of tight finances, in the midst of all those things, pray.
Yeah.
Pray. And so how I like to do that is how to present that is it's not that you're not going to do what you need to do. Of course you are. If what you need is those extra hours, you're going to work those extra hours. If you need to have a tight budget, you're going to have a tight budget, right? All those things.
Yeah.
But if we don't pray, that means that we think that those things are the answer.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no other way of getting it. You can't really get around that.
Right. So understanding that, if you get to the point you're like, yeah, I definitely know that I need to make this a priority, even if it's a minute or two here or there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you could speak to this more than I can because I am weirdly wired to where I can empty my brain pretty easily.
Mm.
Not to say
You
that there's not
can.
times where I can't, but I tend to be able to do that far easier, and I have no idea
Right.
why, but it's just the way I'm wired.
Right.
But if I have found that most people are not like that, so um, when it comes to the point where you say, "I know I need to make this a priority," and you sit down, you're in that spot, and you go to pray, and literally all of the things are in your brain other than praying.
Mm-hmm.
You've carved out these like 2 or 3 minutes. What are some helpful things that we can suggest in order to set those aside and
Yeah.
actually focus on, I don't want to say the task at hand, but to focus on what you're there for?
Even if it's for a brief moment.
Yeah.
Oh man. So that's hard, Dustin. So like, honest moment here. Often where the struggle is for me with that is I'll forget that I started praying. Okay. Now some of you may not be able to understand that. But the way that my brain is wired, there could be so much going in my mind. I could start praying, and then in the middle of that prayer, all of a sudden, here's what'll happen. I'll be praying about the thing. And instead of praying about it, suddenly I'm thinking about how I can solve the thing. And then I'm like, oh, wait a second. No, no, no. I was praying about this. I wasn't thinking about this. I was praying about this. This is why there's an argument for praying out loud. Because if you're praying out loud, it's harder for your brain to then take over and start thinking about it because you can hear yourself, oh, yeah, I was praying. Now, there might be contexts where you can't do that. So maybe it's a whisper even. Maybe it's just on your lips. Some people might think you're crazy. Don't worry about it. But that might help. So the ways I would say that if you have intrusive thoughts that interrupt prayer, praying out loud can help. Doing something physical can help. I'm the worst, by the way. Praying in the car, Dustin, doesn't really work for me unless I'm praying out loud. Well, first of all, because I'm a dangerous driver when I'm distracted, and I'm very easily distracted. So like when I'm driving, it's like it's all I can do. But like
Yeah.
that alone, if I'm praying in my head as a pro, like driving, it's bad. Anyway, so but if you're able to, if you have a mind that's constantly bombarding you, there's all kinds of tips in general to try to help limit that, but we won't get into that today. I'll just say praying out loud. I'll say walking. All right. So combined out loud and walking, even if it's just a 2-minute time of prayer, that can help. If you're at home, maybe that's even like changing which room that you're in. So you can step into a different room. You can step into the bathroom, take a deep breath. Father, here's what's going on. I'm really stressed. This is going on in my life. Help me to trust you with this. Please give me peace. Lord, talk me down from this. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like that, but so changing your space, moving around, praying out
Yeah.
loud. In that moment, if you can, put your phone down, set it in the other room, step in the other room. If you have kids at home, if it's, make sure that they're going to be safe, like make sure that they're in a good place. If you can, leave the room for a moment. Step out if you have a balcony or if you have a backyard, like step out for a moment to outside. If like there's things you can do. So those would be kind of my top tips there of like put your phone down, walk, pray out loud,
Sure.
take a deep breath before you begin. If you have a limited time. If we're talking longer, then there's other tips that you can present. And if you're talking long term, there's even more tips that we could present. But if we're just talking about what you can do today and your
Yeah.
mind is easily distracted, limit the
I
distractions and then you do these things to like bring these outward.
yeah. I was going to say that I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to steer it that way if you weren't. But I do think there is some differences between when you need a couple of moments versus when you're actually trying to sit down and practice what we were
Yeah.
scaring people with in the first part of listening.
Right. Right.
Um, I think that looks totally different than trying to clear some space for like 30 seconds to a minute of prayer.
Right.
Um, I think if we were speaking on that, um, I think what's very helpful is bringing a notebook with you and any because what once again you have to trust us on this, and I know Caleb, you probably
Yep.
experienced this,
Mm-hmm.
is if you're spending any kind of long amount of time trying to pray, there's like this like onslaught of thoughts that
Yeah.
hit you immediately,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that's going to be anything from what you're actually trying to pray about to your to-do list to a conversation you had with someone or a thought. And what you can do is take that notebook and you can write all of these things down to get it out of your head and put it on paper. Because part of the problem is you're trying to remember, I need to remember this after I'm done.
Yes.
And so putting it on paper so that it's there and you can come back to it will help
So I
get
have
that
this
out of your
very
head.
cheap Walmart journal. Okay, you don't
Yeah.
have to spend ridiculous amounts of money on this, or a few bucks at Walmart, and a cheap pen. And now this is also like a scribble notebook. I don't know. So like I do a lot with this notebook. Like there's a lot I do with it, but I'll just show a couple of examples here of times where I had to sit down, get my thoughts out, so then I could actually pray, or so I could actually even listen in prayer. This might even tend more into like silence and solitude a little bit, but you can not.
Sure.
It doesn't just have to be for silence and solitude. Like you can use this either way. So like I've written down a date and a time, and I just started writing stuff out about like what's going on in my mind. I'm sure someone paused that and looked at that. Hopefully that's appropriate. So so sometimes it's shorter. So like I wanted to show that too. So like here's a shorter one that I wrote.
Yeah.
Right? So it depends on what's going on. I have another section where I wrote for several pages. So sometimes there's a lot going on in the mind or not very much going on. But either way, once you write it out, what I've learned is once I get it all out, God gives me the help of knowing how to pray for everything I just poured out,
Mm-hmm.
or it's out of the way for me to listen. So either way, it's a win-win. I'm either going to learn how to pray or how to listen
Yeah.
after I've gotten my intrusive thoughts out of the way. So if you have more time, right? If you have more time as far as opposed to a limited time frame, but your thoughts just won't let you stop, then write the thoughts down. Because then when it's the same thing of getting it out. So you have all
Yeah.
this stuff in here, you get it out, and then once you get out, then pray out loud. And then, for me, especially extended times of prayer, I think I might have even mentioned it last time. Is I always recommend walking if the weather's nice, if you have a place where you can do that safely. So
Yeah.
those are tips for someone. Other people don't have that problem. Those are problems for me. I think no matter who you are, I recommend the journaling part
Yeah.
because I think that really helps a lot. We're not going to present journaling as a discipline. Some people do.
Yeah.
I just present it as a tip or a help to
Yeah.
help you with the discipline of prayer or to help you with the
Right.
discipline of silence and solitude as opposed to a discipline of itself. Main reason is we don't have any examples of Jesus journaling.
Yeah.
So I think we're trying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, I think we're trying to isolate spiritual disciplines to things that we can actually build around Jesus as our master.
Right. Right.
And so some things are good things and helpful things. Doesn't make them a spiritual discipline. It just means they're
Right.
a tool to help. Same thing with like there's not a discipline of walking,
Right.
but
Right.
it's
Right.
a helpful thing for some.
Yeah. And I would say this to the trusting part that I was saying earlier. Once you get past that initial onslaught, things tend to quiet down a lot more. And it's not to say that there won't be things that come back and you'll have to right again. But I do feel like if you're in that season and you're frustrated that all of these thoughts are coming in, he's like, I can't even focus.
Right.
You got to push a little further, and once you get past that hump, it's a little better, right?
Yeah.
You got to
Yep.
push past, and then you can have more of a quiet mind and a quiet heart, ready to listen and to hear. Um, and I think something you were alluding to a second ago, I have heard of some people writing out their prayers as they're talking as a helpful way. I don't know if you've heard of this or not.
Yeah. I'm as writing out prayers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That. So I've practiced that. Some.
Yeah.
I there's cases where I have found it helpful and cases where it has hindered me. And
Hmm.
so in the journal I just showed you, I actually have a few written prayers in it.
Yeah.
So that's not a go-to. That's not a go-to help for me, but I have found it at times to be helpful. So I
Right.
use it. I use it as necessary. So yeah. So anyway, go
Right.
ahead.
No, I was just say that's just something else that maybe you could put in your arsenal of things to maybe
Yeah.
um, help clear out those
Yeah.
thoughts. It can help you focus on what you're saying.
As a kind of a help, we've mentioned before. I'll pull it down. I don't know if I've showed it before. Maybe I have. Probably have. I've mentioned before Justin Early's book, The Common Rule. I'm bringing him up because he has an Instagram, and it's his name, his full name, Justin Whitmill Early. That's Justin, how you'd normally spell it, and then Whitman, Whitmill, Whitmel, Early, Earley. Here, actually, I'll show it up on the screen here. Let me see if that's focused. Hold on. There we go. You see that? So on Instagram, it would be at that, no spaces. The reason I'm showing that, is because on Instagram, he has a bunch of reels just giving tips and ideas when it comes to spiritual disciplines and how quieting yourself. He talks about Sabbath. He talks about all these things. Anyway, I just want to give that a shout out to just a really accessible, is easy to listen to resource on Instagram. I think that would be good.
I think we're probably about out of time, aren't we?
We are. We have like 2 minutes. And we don't have to use those 2 minutes, but we do have like 2 minutes. Is there anything else that you want to
I
share?
I think the only thing that I would say is just in this practice, I feel like prayer is one of the harder things for me, not because
Mm.
necessarily of my brain, but just because I just am not making the space for it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
um, I tend to like the idea of me being in control and making sure everything goes according to plan. So I think a lot of people are like that. And so I would just encourage everyone that whether you realize it or not, this is something we need. We need to
Yes.
have the communication with God.
Yep.
We need to make the space for it because we really don't know what we need.
Yeah.
we we may think we know, but we've got someone who has been around for infinity.
Mm-hmm.
We have someone who knows all, is all powerful, and he's our father
Yep.
if you're following after him.
Yep.
And we have direct access to that. We don't have to go through any rituals. We have the ability to drop everything we're doing and pray to God, this all
Yeah.
powerful being who's in control, knows everything, loves us. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Right? Why wouldn't we? If he is in control, he can change the situation. He may not, but he can. right? So
100%.
I get so focused on what I can do
Hmm.
and how I can fix things and what I need to do in life. And I've got to stop and remind myself I need God.
Yeah.
I need that relationship with Him. I need Him to be speaking to me. I need Him to guide me because I don't know what's best for me.
Yeah. And I feel like I need to mention this as in closing here too is if you're in a space right now where you your go-to right now is your phone, whether for distraction or for community or for or communication. Once again, great tool, but if it's hindering you from either of these disciplines, from scripture reading or from prayer, let me strongly encourage you, turn it off. Whatever important message you think that you need to have your phone on for, probably not going to come while you have it off.
Yeah.
Probably it probably isn't. And so if you know that there's a bunch of time you're spending on your phone as a way to be distracted or as a way to communicate, but you are struggling with prayer, turn your phone off. Set a time. Okay, I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to set it down in this drawer or I'm going to put it in the other room. I'm not even going to think about it. And I'm going to pray. Once again, just a really practical thing to do.
Yeah.
There's been more of the world without phones than there has been with them. The world won't stop rotating on its axis
Yeah.
when you turn your phone off, I promise. Anyway. Well, I think that's it for today, guys. Once again, so much more we could talk about with prayer, barely scratching the surface. But I think that's what we'll talk about for now. And maybe in the future, we can circle back and dive into some more of the
Yeah.
nuances. I think, unless we decide to go a different route, that next time we'll be talking about fasting.
Oh,
And
yes.
I'm curious if you want to, in the comments below, write down if you've heard teaching on fasting before, or if it's something maybe that you've practiced before, or if it's something that maybe not so much. I'd be
Yeah.
curious of your thoughts down below of what that has looked like for you. Or if you have any comments about prayer, please leave that in the comments below as well. And if this podcast, this channel has been helpful to you and you want to hear and see more content, please take the time to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with those around you if you think that it would be a blessing and a help to them. And once again, we're just grateful to be able to kind of share our journey, where we are, what we've learned so far, what we're continuing to learn. And we hope that it can be an enjoyment to you and a help to you on this journey. So,
Yeah. Fasting. Come to the conversation hungry.
yeah. Nice one. Nice. Come hungry for fasting.
Let's do it.
All right. See you guys in the next one.
See you.